Everybody, David Ellefson here with Bass Gear Magazine, Metal on Metal, brand new feature, Metal on Metal. I'm going to ask him a couple questions. He might ask me a couple questions.
I'm going to try. Yeah.
So, dude, you just played Mass Mental here.
Yeah, Mass
Warwick Bass
Mental.
Camp. How did that
a lot of metal.
How did it come together? What happened?
Well, Mass Mental is actually a collective, kind of a crazy, funky, hard-edged collective band that Armand Sabal-Lecco, amazing bass player from Cameroon, who I met back in 1993. It was actually during a Dean Markley ad. They flew us up to San Jose, and the flight up, we didn't know each other, and then the flight back, we were best friends. And at the time, I think they brought a case of beer for us, and we bonded.
Yeah. Right.
And then soon after that, we started writing music. So a lot of the songs that we actually played tonight were songs that we had written back in the 90s. And we've done, this would have been our 6th show. So, I mean, in the course of whatever, since 1993, we've done about 6 shows. And when HP from Warwick asked me to perform at this wonderful event, I said that I would, but I'd love to do it with Armand and Benji, who's actually the singer for this project. And it's a lot of fun. I mean, basically a lot of my friends that I've recorded or written with over the years, any chance I get, it's nice to kind of reconnect with them and write. Armand and I have done stuff for soundtracks, and a couple of things we did for Mass Mental were sort of involved in the animation setting.
Ah, cool.
So when I joined Mass Mental, this is actually what I was doing before I joined.
So
when I joined Metallica, I was doing Mass Mental.
You formed Metallica, you joined Mass Mental.
And I was I was working with Ozzy.
Yeah.
But it's great because it's always something that we've been able to come back to and have a lot of fun, and when the time's right, we do it.
You know what was cool to see is you playing slapping again, right? Because probably in your new day job, you're not doing a whole lot of that.
Right.
And it was cool. I just have this picture of us. Remember in 1993, Metallica, Megadeth, Suicidal Tendencies.
Oh, yeah.
You and our buddy Jimmy DeGrasso were playing together.
That's right.
And I just remember this vision of you scooting across the stage as you're like slapping, right? And it was just cool to see you back doing that again. So how is that with that dynamic with you and Armand?
It's cool. It's been a while. I mean, I had a performance with my old band, the Infectious Grooves, which would have been, I think it was about 4 or 5 months ago, at the Whiskey A Go Go.
Oh, cool.
And that kind of reconnected me to sort of the spirit of that, and it's a lot of fun. It's different. It's sort of a different vibe, but it's still the groove.
Right.
It's like you guys. I mean, you have that groove. Slayer has that groove. Metallica has that groove.
It's a window, it works, and you kind of keep it in there.
James Brown had that groove.
Right.
The groove is everything, and it's really the attitude and the edge that you bring to the groove that makes it whatever it's supposed to be.
So Infectious Grooves, that must have been fun to do that again.
That was fun.
That turned all of us metal guys on our ear when that first came out. I mean, that was so extreme and over the top.
Yeah, I mean, it was really an experiment. Really, when I joined Suicidal Tendencies, Mike Muir and I just started kind of messing around with songs that sort of revolved around the bass and a certain style of bass, not knowing what was going to happen. And we made an album that wasn't really supposed to be made. Sony basically Epic Records treated it like Mike Muir's solo album, which is cool. We made an album for $75,000, which back then was not a lot of money, because albums were being made for
hundreds of thousands.
Yeah, a lot of money. And we managed to get Ozzy Osbourne on a track. And,
is that what got you the Ozzy gig?
I think it helped.
Did it?
He really loved. It was a song called Therapy, and he loved the song.
Note to bass players: hang out with other musicians.
Yeah,
and singers,
definitely.
Right? Yeah, right.
No, I mean, we were recording basically in the same studio as Ozzy, a studio called Devonshire, which is really a great studio, because Ozzy had recorded there, and a wonderful bass player who's no longer with us called Jaco Pastorius recorded with Weather Report there, and then I was a huge Earth, Wind and Fire fan. They recorded there. You know, so it was just great to be in this prestigious, you know,
where the magic
building.
Happened.
You know,
right.
incredible recordings. And Ozzy was there at the same time we were recording Infectious, and that's when he was out of his mind. I remember this one incident. Mike Inez, the bass player for the band at the time, for Ozzy, he had brought his girlfriend. He wanted to impress her, and so he brought her into Devonshire Studios, and Ozzy was out of his mind. First thing he did was tackle her, and then she had these cowboy boots on, and he actually bit into her cowboy boot all the way through to her ankle. Yes,
wow.
I saw it. I was walking down the hallway.
That's like worse than a snake bite, right? Which is the reason you wear a cowboy boot.
I heard the scream. I saw two legs in the doorway, two cowboy boots, and the back of Ozzy on the ground, you know, like, argh. And the next thing I knew, they were in the parking lot, not Ozzy, but Mike Inez and this girlfriend of his, and he's trying to, like, you know,
and this is Mike's new boss, right?
You know, he freaking bit my cowboy boot. Anyway, this is the kind of stuff that
It's one way to get your old
happened.
lady to stay home when you're out working,
Exactly.
right? Yeah, right.
Stay away from Ozzy.
Yeah.
Well, Ozzy bit a lot of people in those days, you know.
Hey, one thing I want to ask you too. I saw a video online of you playing some flamenco guitar. And what's your history with that?
Well, flamenco was probably the first music that I may have heard as a baby, because my father played flamenco. He was it was for obviously hobby purposes, but that's what he played all the time. So I got used to hearing him play that style of music, and also his finger technique obviously was fingers.
Right.
So when I picked up the acoustic guitar, I immediately started playing like that.
Right.
And then I realized at some point that I was gravitating towards music that was more bass driven.
So is that translated over to your bass technique?
To my bass technique,
right.
But also at one point I realized that the more rhythmic instruments like bass and drums were what really suited me, because I wanted to be a drummer first. I lived in an apartment, so I couldn't afford, you know, to get a kid and play loud and all that. My father had a friend who actually had a hollow body bass guitar that didn't work through an amp, but because it was hollow body, I could play it.
Right.
So I kind of played on that for about a year and just learned scales and that, and here I am.
Here you are. Just downstairs, he was shredding holy wars with fingers.
You're trying. That's one of my favorite riffs ever. So every time I see this guy, I'm like,
dude, play holy wars.
How did you write that? What are you doing?
You had a pick for me. I needed a pick.
Yeah, exactly. I've always been fascinated with the riffs that came out of Southern California back in the day, you know, whether it was Hetfield or Mustaine or Kerry King or Jeff Hanneman. And it's similar to like Birmingham, England, you know,
right.
With the heavy riffs are coming out of there, with Black Sabbath and Priest and all that, yeah, and Diamond Head. And, you know, at that time I wasn't around. I mean, I was living up in Los Angeles, and I was a little bit younger than you guys. You kind of came on a few years later. So I was just so impressed with that. What was the energy like in the streets of Southern California when you guys were creating this kind of magic and this kind of heaviness? Is it the spirit of where you're from and what you experienced growing up in what, you know, in the culture of the streets and the concrete jungle?
You know, here's what I think it is, because I moved from Minnesota out to LA in 1983 with the hope that something like Megadeth would happen, and the backup plan was to go to BIT.
Okay,
because every parent wants to know their kid's going to go to school.
That's right. I went to music school too.
All right, so you know, that's right.
But not
so
that school.
I get there, I move into an apartment underneath Dave, and knock on his door, we buy some beer, as the story goes, right? And when I sat down with him and he first started playing, it was a song called Megadeth, in which we changed it to Set the World Afire, and it didn't even come out to our third record. But those riffs and that spider pattern that he had, right? And which is in some of the Ride the Lightning and all these different songs, right, that he'd written back in those days. And it was so cool because you could tell it was something that involved punk and metal, and I think our age group, we grew up with Sabbath and Priest records, but we also had Dead Kennedys and Sex Pistols records, and that was the energy that created thrash.
Right.
And I remember Dave saying, we're never playing any clubs in LA.
Right.
And here I am, I grew up on Van Halen and all these clubs in
Of course.
LA and all this
Yeah.
stuff, all that I'd heard about. And I moved there, and he's like, we're never playing any clubs here.
Right.
So I guess he just played with Saxon or something at the
Right.
Whiskey.
Right.
So he goes, we're going to the Bay Area. So we go up to the Bay Area, and it was off the hook.
Right.
In fact, we had Kerry King with us. He came up and played the first few Megadeth shows with us.
Right.
And I think Slayer was a little bit in limbo what he wanted to do with it. As soon as he saw that, and kids were coming and going, dude, Slayer, what's going on with Slayer?
Right.
And then Kerry saw Tom Hunting from Exodus and saw how fast the music could be. All of a sudden it became this contest of who could be the fastest.
Right.
In fact, this fan letter came. Brian Liu, who ran our fan club up in Palo Alto, he sent this letter down to Dave, and it was basically challenging him to speed the music up, right? And that fan letter single-handedly took our songs from the one fan letter changed the course of our band and probably helped spearhead, you know, the direction of certainly Megadeth, Slayer, probably, right? So it was more this energy that was going on, because everything on the Sunset Strip was, you know, Motley had just gotten signed, Wasp was getting signed, like all these bands were firing off the runway, right? But they weren't what we were doing. And we were the next wave behind it. And the hardest part was probably watching these people take off, be all over MTV, make millions of dollars, so millions of records, and just go, when is our turn? Right? And our turn finally happened.
I mean, it was similar to with Suicidal Tendencies, because it got to the point where Suicidal couldn't even play Los Angeles because of the following that the band had.
I remember that.
Yeah.
And it was violent.
And it was a violent following. So basically, Suicidal ended up doing the majority of the gigs in California in San Francisco, up in the Bay Area.
We all went to the Bay Area.
Yeah. So that's where.
And tape trading, right? And
tape trading.
And the magazines was social media before there was social media.
That's right. Yeah, which was really cool and very organic.
Yeah.
And you know, when you have that kind of passion, I think, and also there's that competitive spirit, you're going to push each other to you know, write songs like Holy Wars or Rain and Blood or
absolutely.
You know,
and everything became
fire, you know?
our songs. And I don't know how you guys do it, but you know, back in the day, and even now, but especially back in those days, we would take a tune, we'd get it to a point, we'd set it aside, then we'd bring it back and we'd add more, we'd keep trimming and cutting and slicing and adding, and pretty soon there was like a full composition. It wasn't just a song with a verse and a chorus and a solo and out, right? It was like this elaborate process to get the songs.
It's exactly how it is with Metallica, which is the opposite with a band like the Infectious Grooves, because that was really more of I got some bass riffs or some bass grooves or whatever, and you get together. The magic that we tried to catch was actually really from the drums. Like we wanted the second take. You know what I mean? So we'd go into the rehearsal room, like say 4 days, and we'd go in for 4 hours a day, and we'd write like say 4 songs each day. And at the end of the week, that was going to be the album. And then the next time you hear those songs was on the cassette in the studio. Oh, okay, yeah.
Almost relearning a jam.
Right, relearning the jam, and then you would record that. But the drummers, we had a drummer called Brooks Wackerman who was phenomenal. Another drummer called Josh Fries. And those kids, they were like 16 years old. You would get the energy and the impact of that take. That's how that band sort of ran with it, and then Mike would come up with the lyrics. Suicidal was more developing the song,
riffs,
the process, and the riffs, and then
the
producer would get involved, and then create that.
Suicidal was one of the first bands that had a real metal guitar kind of playing like Rocky, and especially Mike, right? There was that, especially Mike, really a much more kind of metal chunking sound with the violence.
With the violence, right. Add the violence ingredient, you got Suicidal Tendencies over the years. But you know, that whole thing was a movement. There's the skateboarders were really connected to that. And
you know, there was a whole scene that it was like a fashion, the hat with the flipped up, you know, the boards, everything like that. That was part of that scene. That it wasn't just a song and about the music; it was an entire lifestyle movement.
It was a lifestyle. I mean, I'm wearing my Dickie shorts right now, and I still have a baseball cap. But you know, I'm just a big kid. I'm going to be 50 years old, and I still
When
serve.
you turn 50, I turned 50 in November.
I turned 50 in October. So yeah, happy birthday to us, right?
Here's like old heavy metal bass players, still trying to be young, because we are young.
Right on.
Awesome,
Yeah.
man. So, well, cool, man. We're here hanging at the Warwick Bass Camp 2014. Robert Trujillo, David Ellefson, Metal on Metal.
Oh yeah.